You know, there's something about a scary story that claims to be true that just hits different. It taps into this deep, primal fear that, hey, maybe the monsters aren't just in books, maybe they're real, maybe they're right down the street. So today, we're going to pull that feeling apart and see what makes it tick.
So let's just start with the big question. What is it that makes a story genuinely scary? Not just kind of spooky, but the kind of story that gets in your head and stays there. Is it the monster? The jump scare? Or is it something way closer to home? Well, here's the idea we're going to unpack. The most powerful horror, the stuff that really gets under your skin, doesn't come from some other dimension. It happens when the perfectly normal, everyday world we live in suddenly rips open and shows us something awful hiding underneath. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to break down the anatomy of a nightmare by looking at 5 key elements: the deceptive lure, the violated sanctuary, the uncanny stranger, the terror of being watched, and maybe the most important of all, the unanswered question.
So, we're not just here to retell some scary stories for the fun of it. We're actually going to dissect them. We're going to figure out why they work, why they make us feel that genuine, cold spot on your back kind of terror.
So, let's kick things off with our first theme, the deceptive lure. This is all about that nagging fear that something that seems way too good to be true probably is. And it usually starts with something totally 100% normal, like, say, buying a used car. All right, so picture this. A guy's looking for a car for his son's 18th birthday. He stumbles across this deal on Craigslist, a 2003 Camry, super low mileage, only $3,500. I mean, that's a steal, right? He calls up the seller, a guy named Bob, who sounds totally normal, super friendly, assures him the car's in great shape. Everything about this feels completely routine.
But when he gets there, the vibe is just off. The Camry's nowhere to be found. He knocks on the door, no answer. He calls the guy's phone, and he can hear it ringing inside the house. So he peeks through a window and sees a shape, a figure, just standing motionless by the back door. Thinking it's Bob, he walks around to the backyard to say hi, and that's when his whole world just shatters. The figure isn't Bob, it's a taxidermied human being.
And that's the narrator's horrifying realization. The car wasn't real. The deal was the bait. He was the one being shopped for. The thought that he was this close to being lured into a trap, to become some kind of horrific human statue, that's what makes this so terrifying. The ordinary just became a potential death sentence.
Okay, let's move on to our next theme. This one taps into an even more basic fear. What happens when the one place on Earth you're supposed to feel totally safe, your home, gets invaded?
I mean, this is the stuff of nightmares, right? It plays on our deepest sense of security. Like, in one story, a little kid wakes up, calls for his mom, and a voice that sounds exactly like her calls back from the hallway telling him to go back to sleep. But then, he hears his real mom call from downstairs. He looks over at his closet door, and through that little crack, he sees an eye, staring back. The same thing happens when your entire home feels like it's under attack. So let's zero in on that ranch story. Imagine it. You're out at your uncle's place, way out in the country. A massive thunderstorm is just raging, lightning cracking every few seconds. You are completely isolated, and the storm itself is a perfect cover for, well, for anything.
And then you hear it. A loud, metallic thud outside, perfectly hidden by a crash of thunder. At first you think, nah, it's just a storm. But then it happens again, and again. And just like that, that feeling of safety is gone. It's replaced by the terrifying knowledge that someone is out there using the storm as a shield.
And the fear just escalates. It starts as a noise in the distance, then it moves closer, right to the basement door. The narrator dares to look outside and sees a person dressed in all black, just bashing away at the lock. He jerks his head back inside, and suddenly, the sound stops. But the silence is somehow worse. He turns around, and there is a face at his window, looking right in at him. The threat is no longer outside, it's here.
This brings us to another really powerful fear, the uncanny stranger. This isn't just about meeting a bad guy. It's about an encounter with someone whose behavior is so weird, so illogical, it feels like they aren't even playing by the same rules of reality as us. They feel fundamentally wrong. So check this out. A guy goes to see a movie by himself on a stormy night. He thinks he's the only one in the entire theater. And then he sees a head just peek up over a seat, staring at him. He describes the face as pale and lifeless, with eyes that just hung open, totally motionless. I mean, that description alone is just so creepy. It's not a person. It's like a thing that looks like a person.
He gets freaked out, obviously, and decides to just get out of there.
But as he's walking past the row where he saw the figure, he can't help himself. He glances down to see what this person is doing, and what he sees makes no sense at all.
The man is on the floor, holding up a severed head on a stick. The absolute simplicity of that reveal is what makes it so nightmarish. There's no reason, no explanation given. It's just a moment of pure bizarre horror dropped into the middle of a movie theater.
And you see the same broken logic in the story about the abandoned house. A couple of guys see a face in the window, but the second they point it out, poof, it's gone. They try to tell a weird neighbor about it, but he just ignores them and stands in his own window watching them. So finally, they go inside the house and yell out, and the only answer they get is this impossibly heavy, fast stomping from right above their heads. Every normal thing they do is met with a response that is just deeply, fundamentally wrong.
Okay, now let's talk about a theme that really weaves through a lot of these stories. It's a fear that is hardwired into our DNA, the absolute terror of being watched by someone or something that you can't see.
Just think back for a second. The guy escaping the taxidermist sees the blinds move and just knows he's being watched. The intruder at the ranch doesn't just break in, he ends up staring through the window. That weird neighbor, Marv, his only role is to stand there and watch. It's this constant, unnerving feeling of being observed by some hidden, hostile thing that connects so much of this horror.
This quote from another story, one that takes place deep in the woods, just says it all. Two guys go to check out a weird noise, and they both get it at the same time. That instinctual, hair on the back of your neck feeling that they were being watched, that they were being stalked. It's the pure fear of the unseen predator.
And this all leads us to the final, and I think maybe the most crucial ingredient in these nightmares. See, the scariest stories aren't the ones that wrap everything up nicely. The ones that truly stick with you are the ones that don't really end at all. The real horror comes from the not knowing.
Because in the end, we're just left with questions, right? What was the taxidermist actually planning to do? Who or what was in that closet? Was that severed head in the movie theater even real? What was making that stomping noise? We never get the answers. And it's that void, that not knowing, that lets the fear just sit and fester in your mind long after the story is over.
Because when a story doesn't give you the answer, your own brain has to fill in the blanks. And let's be honest, what our imaginations can cook up in that silence is often way more terrifying than any monster someone could write on a page. It makes you think about the little unexplained sounds in your own house, the strange coincidences in your own life. So what's waiting in the silence of your story?